morning I learned that President Trump's son-in-law is building a hotel in Belgrade. And he's even promised he's going to put in a memorial garden in Belgrade to the victims of NATO aggression. There weren't any victims of NATO aggression, but there were plenty of victims of Serb aggression in Kosovo. So I found this pretty outrageous. And then I looked back at the record and I sort of put two and two together. And that's why I'm out here asking you today, you've got to vote Democratic. You've got to help us protect Kosovo. Mr. Trump has a special relationship with Mr. Putin. He does. He'll brag about it. He told you. In fact, the latest news is he's had 7 secret phone calls with Mr. Putin since he left office. And Mr. Putin wants to break up NATO. And Mr. Trump wants to please Mr. Putin. So, you know, it's as easy as 1, 2, 3. Trump, no NATO, no Kosovo. It's going to be that simple if we don't stop it. And that's why I'm here asking for your support. Vice President Harris is as experienced in public life as anybody could be. She was a prosecuting attorney of one of the most populous states in the United States. She was a senator. She spent 4 years as vice president. Now, I think she's pretty tough. And I think she held her own pretty well in that last debate against Mr. Trump. So I hope, and I'm hoping, I'm looking at the ladies here, I hope you won't hold it against her that she's a lady. I think women can be pretty strong. Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher of England, she was tough and she was strong. And I think Kamala Harris can be pretty strong for us. And I think she's already said she's going to support Ukraine and she's going to support NATO, and that means she's going to support Kosovo. And that's what we need. Look, the United States is in a really tough position today. We have 4 principal adversaries. And the threat of war is growing worse each day. North Korea is now a nuclear power and can fire intercontinental ballistic missiles and strike the United States. Now, why would they want to do that? Beats me. I think the guy's kind of half crazy who runs North Korea. And we didn't want him to have nuclear missiles, but he has them. Iran is on the verge of having its own nuclear weapons. And they have long-range missiles. And they're spoiling for a fight with Israel. And who knows what's going to happen there. But what we do know is that President Putin is encouraging Iran because there's a relationship with Iran. A Russian relationship, a strategic document has been signed, and Iran is giving Putin weapons, and in return, Putin is giving Iran technology. Just like North Korea is giving Putin weapons and ammunition. In fact, the latest report is North Korean forces are fighting in Ukraine. So he's got a strategic relationship. And then there's China. President Xi and President Putin got together a couple of years ago and they signed an agreement. And they say it's a no-limits partnership. As Mr. Xi said, he said there are changes taking place not seen in 100 years. And he said to Mr. Putin, we're driving it. Now, what he's really talking about is undercutting America's leadership and influence in the world. And that will come right back to haunt us in Europe, in Kosovo, and in the American economy in the United States. So, in this election, we got a really important choice. We can support Kamala Harris, who really supports America, who's strong, is going to stand up for our principles. Or we can go the other side. We can vote for a, really charming guy who's a personal friend of President Putin, who's going to do what Putin wants. I don't think it's much of a choice. And that's why I'm here asking you, please help me. A lot of people lost their lives in 1997, 98, 99. The Uchikov formed to try to protect those people. We bombed in NATO. We helped Kosovo become independent. I don't want to see that destroyed. I don't want to see Russia establish its grip on Eastern Europe again and repress the people there. And I don't want to see the war come to the shores of the United States. Kamala Harris is the person to keep Kosovo safe and keep America safe. So I hope, as you're going through the last few days of this election, I hope that you'll encourage everybody that you know, all the Albanian American community, and your children, your school teachers, and everybody you associate with. You've got to vote in this election, and you've got to vote for Kamala Harris. Really, our country's future is dependent on it. I want to stop there and thank you very much. And I'll take any questions. Okay. And I'll take any questions. Anybody wants to ask, let's have a discussion, let's talk about things. And
my name is Gjenerali Wesley, president of the organization Gjenerali Wesley. We all know your support that you did for Kosovo and your administration for all Albanians. We appreciate that and we thank you. But is the new administration ready to push forward Kosovo and NATO? And as you said, that the scenario of the Russians, Ukraine, we are afraid that it's going to be spread. Is the United States ready to support peace in Balkan?
So, is the United States ready to push Kosovo to NATO?
Yeah.
And secondly, what about peace in Ukraine? So here's the answers. Now these are my answers. I haven't spoken to Kamala Harris, okay? But here's the truth, okay? First of all, Kosovo is moving closer and closer to membership in NATO. Macedonia is a member of NATO. Albania is a member of NATO. Croatia is a member of NATO. Bulgaria is a member of NATO. Greece is a member of NATO. Of course, Albania and the Albanian group in Kosovo. And Kosovo itself will become members of NATO. I've been over there to the Ministry of Defense. I've talked to the minister. I've taught a class. I love it. It's great to see it's going to happen. If we get the right person as president. If we get as president someone who doesn't want NATO, then Kosovo won't become a member of NATO. It's black and white, really. It's that clear cut. Now, as far as Ukraine, right now the Ukrainians, look, here's what happens. You saw and you know what Milosevic was trying to do in Kosovo. He was trying to stamp out your language, your culture, and your people who were resisting. This is the way the Russians operate, and this is what they're trying to do in Ukraine. They come in, they know the names of the teachers, the human rights workers, the lawyers, all the people who could sort of lead a resistance. And they get those people in, and they put them through what they call a filtration camp. They took their families, they took their cell phones, then they found out who they were talking to. So there have been hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians from Donbass who were run through these camps and eliminated. Some of the women were put into what we would call white slavery. We know this. Some of the men were shot right away. Some of the children were taken and given to Russian families to try to get them to forget their Ukrainian heritage. That's the Russian way of war. So the Ukrainians are not anxious to have a peace plan. The Ukrainians want their country back. And they want those people who've been abducted accounted for, and they want their children back. So I don't know what's going to happen. I know this. President Trump says he's going to get a peace plan like that because he's good friends with Putin. The Ukrainians don't want a peace plan like that surrenders their people. Ukraine they want their land back. They want the missing people accounted for. They want the children returned. They want Russia to pay for the $1 trillion of destruction of Ukraine. And they want the war criminals brought to trial. Now Hashim Thachi's sitting up there in The Hague right now on trial because the Russians cooked up this crazy evidence that somehow he was in organ transplants or something, or was in charge of something. I know Thachi, and I know how the Uchaka worked during that conflict, and I can tell you it's all made up. We can't get him out. The real war criminal is Vladimir Putin, who started the conflict in Ukraine. So I can't predict what's going to happen on it, but I can say this. Vice President Harris says she's going to stand with the Ukrainians, and she's going to help them get their freedom and hold on to their country, and I think that's really important. I think people that sort of promise an instant solution to these kinds of problems, they don't understand the problem, or they've got something in mind that doesn't look very good. So, I hope that answers your question. Look, I hear President Trump going out and saying, we're about to have World War III and only he can prevent it. Number one is we're not about to have World War III, but we do have some challenges out there. And number two is he's not the person to prevent it because he cuts deals with dictators. That's what he does. He doesn't use diplomacy. He talks mano a mano. I'll give you this, you give me that. And that's not the way to protect the United States. Sorry?